Hello everyone, my name is Stonesy Boy, and we are back to reading Fazbear Fright Into the Pit. But today we are actually on a new segment of the book. It's called Count the Ways. Count the ways to your heart. God knows where to start. We're ending this on page 160, I believe. Let me double check. Yep. Okay. So let's do this. Woohoo! Okay, why, if it isn't Millie Fizzyman? A deep, booming voice said. In the darkness, it was as hard to tell exactly where it was coming from, but it felt like it was all around her. Silly Millie, chilly Millie, the ice-cold goth girl who's always dreaming of death. Am I right? Who are you? Millie demanded. Where are you? Above her, a large pair of terrifying blue eyes rolled backwards, looking down into the chamber. I'm right here, silly Millie. Or maybe I should say, you're right here. You're right inside my belly. In the belly of the beast, I guess you could say. So, you're the bear. Millie wondered if she had fallen asleep after she climbed inside the old robot. If she was dreaming. This is all too weird. You can just think of me as a friend. You're a friend to the end. We just have to decide if the end is going to be now, is going to be slow or quick. I don't understand. The space was starting to feel claustrophobic. She tried the door. It wouldn't budge. You understand very soon, chilly Millie. You goth girls crack me up. All dressed like professional mourners. So serious all the time. Daydreaming about death like he's a lead singer in some boy band. And that when you meet him, it'll be love at first sight. Well, Merry Christmas, Millie. I'm going to make your dreams come true. If it's not a question of if, but how. What was happening? She was definitely awake. Had she lost her mind? Descended into madness like a character in an Edgar Allan Poe story? I'd like to get out now, she said. Her voice sounded small and shaky. Nonsense, the voice said. You're gonna stay in here all nice and cozy while we work out how you're going to have a dream date with Dad. The choice is all yours, but it'll be my pleasure to present you with some options. Options of how to die? Millie felt cold, metallic taste of fear. In the back of her throat. Fantasies about death were one thing, but this felt like reality. Millie, what a stupid name. She was named after her great-grandmother, Maleficent Fitzsimmons. But Millie wasn't the kind of name you would saddle a person with. A cat or a dog, maybe. Not an actual human. Hold on. There we go. Millie's black cat was named Annabelle Lee, after the beautiful dead girl in Edgar Allan Poe poem, which meant that Millie's cat officially had a better name than she did. But Millie thought it had sense that her parents would come up with a ridiculous name. She loved Flittery and she loved them. And they were ridiculous people in a lot of ways. Flighty and impractical. The kind of people who would never think how hard elementary school would be for a little girl whose name rhymed with silly. Her parents flitted from job to job. Hold on. I need to pull this forward. Knock over my drink, because why not? So, that goes there. Let me see if my mic is... I'm not muted. Is this unplugged? No. Cool. Just gotta check everything real quick. Millie thought, since her parents would have such a ridiculous name, how hard elementary school would be for a little girl whose name rhymed with silly. Her parents flitted from job to job, from hobby to hobby, and now it seemed from country to country. Over the summer, Millie's dad had been offered 1 year of teaching job in Saudi Arabia. Her mom and dad had given her a choice. she'd go with them. It'll be an adventure, her mom kept saying, and be homeschooled. Or she could move with her kooky grandpa for the year and start the local high school. Talk about a lose-lose situation. After lots of crying and raging and sulky, Millie had finally chosen the kooky grandpa option over being stranded in a foreign country with her well-meaning and unreliable parents. And now, Millie was here in a strange little room, Grandpa's big, strange Victorian house. She had to admit, the idea of living in an old, sprawling, 150-year-old house, where surely someone to have died at some point, suited her well enough. The only problem was that it was filled with the brim with grandparents drunk. Millie's grandpa was a collector. Lots of people have collections, of course, comic books, gaming cards, or action figures, but Grandpa didn't collect a specific type of thing, so much as accumulate a lot of different things. He was definitely a collector, but a collector of what? Millie wasn't sure, but it all seemed very random. Looking around the living room, she could see a license plate and hubcaps hanging from one wall, old baseball bats, and tennis rackets on another. A life-size suit of armor stood guard at on one side of the front door, and mangy-looking taxidermy bobcat stood at the other side, its mouth open and fangs bared in menacing fashion. One glass case in the living room contained nothing but porcelain baby dolls with tiny teeth staring at glass eyes. They were creepy, and Millie tried to stay away from them, though they still showed up sometimes in her nightmares, with those little teeth chomping at her. So we're reading to 160, and we started this story on 138. So that's 2. So that'd be 40. So it'd be 22. So plus 11, 38 plus 11 would be 49. So at page 149, I'll stop. Her grandma died before Millie was born. Cheap chomping at her. Her bedroom had been her grandma's sewing room, and it was still contained the old sewing machine, even though her grandma had died before Millie was born. Grandpa moved in the narrow bed and a dresser to accommodate Millie and her belongings, and she had tried to make the room her own. She draped the bedside lamp with sheer black lacy scarf so it gave off a muted glow. She covered the dresser with dripping candles, and hung posters of Kurt Carson, her favorite singer, on the walls. Kurt Carrion. One poster, the cover design, was the album Rigor Mortis. Kurt's lips were peeled back to reveal a set of metal fangs. The perfect red bead of blood glistened on his chin. The trouble was, though, no matter how much Millie tried to match the room decor with her own personality, it never quite worked. The sewing machine was there, and the wallpaper was cream-colored and decorated with tiny pink rosebuds, even with Kurt Carrison's pink face glowing on the wall. There was something about the room that seemed sweet and old lady-ish. "Soup's on!" Grandpa called from the bottom of the stairs. This is how he always announced dinner, and yet he had never once served soup. "I'll be there in a minute," Millie yelled back, not really caring whether she ate dinner or not. She dragged herself off the bed and made her way downstairs slowly, trying not to bump into or trip over any of the clutter that seemed to fill every square inch of the space in the house. Millie met Grandpa in the dining room, where the walls were decorated with souvenir plates printed with the names and landmarks of different states he had visited with Grandma when she was alive. The opposite wall displayed replicas of antique swords. Millie wasn't sure what those were about. Grandpa was every bit of weird as his collections. His wispy gray hair and messy and wild, and he's always wore the same ratty tan cardigan. Looked like he would play a wacky inventor in an old movie. "Dinner is served, madame," Grandpa said, setting a bowl of mashed potatoes on the table. Millie sat at her place on the table and surveyed the visuously disgusting meal. Mushy-looking meatloaf, instant mashed potatoes, and creamed spinach. And she knew that she had then packaged and frozen solid block until she zapped it in the microwave. It was a meal you can eat even if you didn't have teeth, which Millie supposed went with territory of having an old person cook for you. Millie loaded her plate with mashed potatoes since they were the only edible thing on the table. Now make sure you get some meatloaf and spinach too, Grandpa said, passing her the bowl of greens. You need the iron. You always look so pale. I like being pale. Millie wore a sheer light powder on her to make her face look even paler in contrast to the black eyeliner, black clothing she favored. Well, Grandpa said, helping himself to the meatloaf, I'm glad you don't bake yourself in the sun like your mother did when she was your age. Still, you could use a little color in your cheeks. He held out a platter of meatloaf to her. You know I don't eat meat, Grandpa. Meat was gross. Meat was gross. And also murder. Eat some spinach then, Grandpa said, spooning some out of her plate. Plenty of iron in it. You know, back when I learned how to do a little bit of cooking, I can manage, but it was about meat. Meatloaf, steaks, roast beef, pork chops. But if you'll help me with some vegetarian recipes, I'll sure try to cook them. It would probably be better for my health to eat less meat anyway. Millie sighed and pushed the spinach around on her plate. Don't bother. It doesn't really matter whether I eat or not. Grandpa set down his fork. Of course it matters. Everybody's gotta eat. He shook his head. There's no pleasing you, is there, girlie? I'm trying to be nice and figure out what you like. I want you to be happy here. Millie pushed her plate away. It's a waste of energy to try to make me happy. I'm not a happy person. And you know what? I'm glad I'm not happy. Happy people are just lying to themselves. Well, if there's nothing in the store but misery, I guess you might as well get started on your homework, Grandpa said as he ate his last bite of mashed potatoes. Millie rolled her eyes and flounced out of the room. Homework was misery. School was misery. Her whole life was misery. In her miserable room, Millie opened her laptop and searched for famous poems about death. She reread her old favorites, Annabel Lee, the cat with the same name curled up on her bed, and The Raven by Poe. Then tried one she'd never seen before by Emily Dickinson. The poem talked about death as a guy picking up a girl for a date with death. The thought made Millie lightheaded. She thought of death as a handsome black cloaked stranger choosing her as the one he would take away to boredom and misery of everyday life. She imagined he looked just like Kurt Carrion. Inspired, she grabbed her black leather journal and began to write. Oh, death, show me now your ravaged face. Oh, death, how long I live for your chilly embrace. Oh, death, my life is such a misery that only you can set me free. She knew poems didn't have to rhyme, but Edgar Allan Poe and Emily Dickinson rhymed, so she rhymed in her poem too. Not bad, she decided. Sighing in dread of what lay before her, she closed her journal and took out her book. Algebra. What use was algebra in the face of human beings? Inevitable monetarily? None. Well, none except that if she didn't pass all of her classes, her parents would cut off the allowance that her grandpa doled out to her every week. She was saving up for more jet morning jewelry. She opened her algebra book, picked up her pencil, and began. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. What? What? Millie snapped and slammed her book shut, as if she interrupted doing something she actually enjoyed. Grandpa nudged on the door, opened with his foot. He was carrying a glass of milk and a plate of fragrant chocolate chip cookies. I'm sorry, I can't read. I thought you might need a little study fuel, he said. I know chocolate always did the trick for me. Grandpa, I'm not a little kid anymore, Millie said. You can't buy happiness. You can't buy happiness with a few cookies. Okay, Grandpa said. still holding the plate. You want me to take them away then? No, Millie said quickly. Leave them. Grandpa shook his head, smiled a little, set a plate and a glass in Millie's beside the table. I'm going to putter around in my workshop for an hour or so, girlie, he said. Call me if you need anything. I won't need anything, Millie said, turning back to her algebra homework. She waited until she was sure he was gone and then devoured the cookies. Options of how to die exactly, the voice in the darkness said. You're catching on now, bright girl. Now I'd call the first couple of options the lazy choices. Okay. Choices. They don't require me to do anything but keep you here and let nature take its course. The advantage to these is that they're easy peasy for me, but not easy for you. Slow with lots of suffering, but who knows? That might appeal to your morbid sensibilities. Lots of opportunities for land gushing. You like land gushing? What do you mean? What do you mean? Millie asked. Whatever the answer was, she knew she wasn't going to like it. Dehydration is one option, the voice said. No water at all. And you can start dying in as few as 3 days. Or as many as 7. You're young and healthy, so I'd put my money on taking you a while. Depriving the body of water has a fascinating effects. With no fluids coming in to filter out and flush, the kidneys would shut down and your body starts poisoning itself, making you sicker and sicker. Once these poisons have time to build up, you can suffer total organ failure, or heart attack, or stroke. But that's death for you. So glamorous, so romantic. Are you making fun of me? The voice that came out of Millie was tiny and soft, the voice of a scared little girl. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there, because this is page 149 and or 150. Okay. I don't have my drink, but I do have ice cream. This is good. So, every episode I have a theory about this. My theory is that the bear that is holding Millie is Funtime Freddy. Because, like how Game Theory said, or how the secret that you can find in FNAF 6. How Funtime Freddy has a storage capsule in his stomach. That's the way I see it. Anyways, I'm gonna be right back. I need to go put away this ice cream and grab a legit drink. I'm not editing this out. You guys are gonna be in legit silence. Yeah, my dog just bit me trying to wake up one of my parents because they were sleeping on the couch. So I'm letting them sleep. Okay. So, that's genuinely my theory about it. Ooh, I got sour pouches. Okay, I'll be eating these. And this Millie kid, I know, so she's a goth. So you know. Yes, I do have a thing against gothic people. There's only one gothic person I like. Her name's Lucy Loud. That's because she does it properly. Or, she's the only one I know. Well, now I know Millie, so who knows. Not at all, my dear. I like you, Millie. And that's why I'm here to make your wishes come true. Like a genie. Except you're the one who's trapped in a bottle. The voice stopped to chuckle. Starvation is another classic, too. But that's really a slow-moving train. It takes weeks for the body to use up its stores and nutrient to break down all of its protein to turn on itself. It could take weeks. Some people have even lasted a couple of months. Millie knew her grandpa would rescue her before she would starve to death. That'll never work. Grandpa comes in here and puttered around after dinner every night. He'll find me. How? The voice asked. He'll hear me in here. I'll scream. Scream all you want, lamb chop. It's soundproof. No one will hear you. And anyway, after a few days, you'll be too weak to scream. Winter break was just 1 week away. And the whole school was decorated with wreaths and Christmas trees and the occasional menorah. Millie didn't know why people got excited over holidays. They were just the desperate attempt to invent some happiness in the face of life's utter meaninglessness. Okay, I need a legit drink. While I'm grabbing this drink, an actual drink so I can read properly. So his grandpa is the maker of this weird animatronic bear. So, I'm saying the grandpa is William Afton, the one that was creating the robots. And Millie, the granddaughter, is the one that got killed by Baby. Maybe. I don't know. People would wish her a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays until they turned Santa Claus red in the face. But she wouldn't say it back. Nor that people were going out of their way to wish Millie well. As she walked down the hall to the lunchroom, one blonde cheerleader, Millie didn't even know her name, said, I'm surprised to see you out in the daylight, Dracula's daughter. The cheerleader looked over at her equally blonde friends, who she'd been talking to more than she'd actually been talking to Millie. They all laughed. The Dracula's daughter things had started because she'd been carrying around a paper check copy of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And one of the jockey popular guys had said, oh, look how sweet. She's reading a book about her dad. From then on, she'd been Dracula's daughter. Of course, everybody knew she was really Jeff and Audrey Fitzman's daughter, which had made her almost as much as a misfit as she would have been if Dracula were her real dad. The Fitzmans was kind of a joke in the town, famous for the tendency to start projects with great enthusiasm and then abandon them. They had run down once beautiful colonial house, and then Millie was 10 and thrown themselves into refurbishing it. They had kept it up for 3 months until they ran out of time, money, and energy. As a result, the house had weird patchwork quality. Living room and kitchen were repainted and had new fixtures, but the bedrooms still had old peeling paper and floors with squeaky boards. The bathroom pipes screamed when you turned on the water, and the ancient tub, sink, and toilet never looked clean, no matter how much they were scrubbed. The most talked about thing, though, was the exterior of the house. Millie's dad had repainted the front and one side of a nice soft blue and cream trim. But paint was expensive, painting was exhausting, and he really didn't like getting up on ladders. As a result, the front of the house was painted beautifully, but the back and other side were covered in old, flaking white paint. Millie's mom said nobody would notice, but it was like It was like when people arranged the Christmas tree so ugly side faced the wall. People noticed. People also noticed Fitz' inability to keep a steady job. Millie's parents were always coming up with some new scheme that finally was going to bring them from success of their dreams. One year, her mom was making candles and selling them to the farmer's market, while her dad started a neutral supplement store that closed its doors after 6 months. After that, her mom started a store that sold yarn and knitting supplies, and they might have to go of it either of her parents. Had made a go of it, either the parents had known about yarn and knitting, and then they bought a food truck, even though they were both terrible cooks. Millie couldn't understand how her parents could remain so optimistic with failure after failure, but they did. They attacked the new project with huge enthusiasm, and then after a few months, both of the project and the enthusiasm fizzled out. They weren't poor exactly. There was always food to... Hold on. I'm trying to set up my chair properly because this is a new chair. Food to eat, even if toward the end of the month it tended to dwindle, the pancake mix and boxed macaroni and cheese. But still, was always worried about how the bills would get paid. Millie knew that her grandpa helped them out some months. Her grandpa was also considered weird in town, but was cut some slack because he was old and a widower and had been an excellent high school math teacher for many years. As a result, he earned the title of eccentric instead of weird. Some people said that maybe by taking his teaching job in Saudi Arabia, Jeff was finally getting it together, following his dad's footsteps. Millie knew, though, that her dad would thrift her away like an opportunity like he had so many others. So Dracula's daughter, Jeff and Audrey Fitzman's daughter, either one, was a one-way ticket to being a social outcast. In the cafeteria, Millie took a second to adjust to the deafening din of hundreds of teenagers talking and laughing. She walked past the table full of popular girls and saw her best friend in elementary school, Hannah, sitting with them, laughing at something the other girls were laughing about. Millie and Hannah have been inseparable from kindergarten through 5th grade, playing on the swings or jumping rope together at every recess and playing dolls, or board games at each other's houses after school. But in middle school, popularity started to be more and more important to Hannah. She drifted away from Millie and toward the crowd, who was always giggling about clothes and boys. What Millie understood about Hannah did not that close girls ever accepted Hannah was more as a hanger-on. Hannah lived in a plain little house in a plain little neighborhood and not have the money or the social status to make the cut. The popular girls did not push her away, but left her in her cynical circle either. It made Millie and Hannah prefer to accept crumbs from the popular girls rather than real friendship from her. But then a lot of things that made Millie sad. Millie sat alone, nibbling on an egg salad sandwich and apple slices her grandpa packed for her, reading tales of mystery and imagination. She was managing to drown out all the cafeteria's noise and focus on the story she was reading. The Fall of the House of Usher, Roderick Usher, the main character of the story. Couldn't bear noise of any kind. But then she felt herself being watched. She looked up from her work and seeing a lanky boy with horn-trimmed glasses and frizzy hair had been dyed fire engine red. Both of his ears were studded with silver earrings. Millie covered his black leather jacket. Hi, I was wondering, he nodded at the chair across from Millie. Is anybody sitting there? Was this guy asking to sit with her? Nobody ever asked to sit with her. My imaginary friend, Millie said. Wait, was that a joke? She never joked with people. The boy grinned, revealing a mouthful of braces. Well, could your imaginary friend mind if I sat in her lap? Millie looked at the empty chair for a second. She said, suit yourself. Okay, he said, setting his tray down. Thanks to both of you. I don't really know anybody yet. I'm new. Nice to meet you, new. I'm Millie. What, was she a comedian now? My name's Dylan, actually. I just moved here from Toledo. Toledo? He gestured toward her book. His fingernails were short but polished back. A Poe fan, huh? Millie nodded. Me too, Dylan said. And H.P. Lovecraft. I love all and old scary murders. I never read Lovecraft, Millie said. Better to be honest than try to fake knowledge and talk to her corner. I've heard of him, though. Oh, you'd love him, Dylan said, dunking a cafeteria-issued chicken nugget into a puddle of ketchup. Shut your mouth, I'm hungry. Super dark and twisty. He looked around the cafeteria, his face a mask of dissident. So is this school as lame as it seems? Lamer, Millie said, marking her place in the book and shutting it. The House of Usher wasn't going anywhere, and she couldn't remember when she last had an interesting conversation. Well, I'll tell you what, Dylan said, gesturing with a French fry. So far, you're the only person I've seen here who seems cool. Millie felt her face heating up. She hoped a blush went pink in her pallor. Thanks, she said. I like your jacket. And I like your earrings. She reached up to touch one with the black teardrops that dangled from her earlobes. Thanks. They're jet. Victorian morning jewelry. Thanks. They're Victorian morning jewelry. I know, Dylan said. He knew what kind of high school guy knew about Victorian morning jewelry. I have a few pieces of it, Millie. I have a few pieces of it, Millie said. I mostly find them on eBay. I can't afford my favorite kind, though, which is... Dylan put up his hand. Wait, don't tell me. This is the kind where you have to weave the hair of the dead person into the jewelry, right? Yes. Yes, Millie said, shocked and amazed. Those pieces show up sometimes on eBay. They always cost a fortune. The bell rang, signaling lunch period was about to end. Dylan leaned toward Millie and half whispered, Do not ask for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee, Millie finished. Where had this guy come from? Toldo, sure. But how was he so sophisticated and knowledgeable? She never met anyone like him. Dylan stood up. Millie, it's been a rare pleasure. Would you and your imaginary friend mind very much if I joined you two at lunch tomorrow? Millie felt the corners of her mouth twitch in an unfamiliar way. We wouldn't mind at all, she said. See, I thought about freezing you to death too, the voice said. Oh. See? I thought about freezing you to death too, the voice said. I thought it'd be short out of the power and the space heater turns off. My metal body can get pretty cold, but I figured your grandpa would come in and notice the power was out if the precious workshop would fix it right away. So freezing to death was a no-go. Sorry if you had your heart set on that one, sweet pea. Millie was shivering not from the cold, but from fear. I don't understand. Why do you want to kill me? Interesting you should ask, the voice said. There are a couple of reasons, actually. The first is quite simply that it's something to do. I sat in the salvage yard for ages. Therefore, your grandpa found me and brought me here, where I've just been sitting too. I'm bored out of my skull. And that's not... I have a literal skull, but you know what I mean. Aren't there other things that you can do besides killing people? Millie asked. Whatever this being was, it was obviously intelligent. Maybe she could reason with it. None so interesting. And plus, there's my second reason, which is that death is what you want. You've been moaning about it since you moved here. Talking about how you want to die. Well, I like to kill people. And you don't want to die? And you want to die. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. Like those little birds that pick at parasites with rhinoceros. The birds get to eat, the rhinoceros get rid of the itchy little bugs. We both get what we want. Win-win. Millie suddenly realized that she had spoken of death written about but I had always been just an interesting idea to play around with. She never intended to take any action into reality. But I don't want to die. Not really. Horrible rumbling sound surrounded Millie and shook the body of the machine that trapped her. It took her a few seconds to recognize the sound of laughter. The sound is laughter. For dinner, Grandpa made spaghetti and marinara sauce, garlic bread, and Caesar salad. It was much better than the meals he usually slung together. You're actually eating tonight, Grandpa said. Because this is actually good, Millie said, twirling the spaghetti with her fork. All right, I've finally found something you like to eat, Grandpa said. I'll add it to my limited repertoire. I kept the sauce meatless for you and added meatballs to mine. So everybody's happy. Herbivores, carnivores alike. Well, happy may be stretching it, Millie said, unwilling to admit she'd actually had a kind of a good day. But the spaghetti is good, and my day at school didn't totally stink. And what made this day less stinky than usual? Grandpa asked, spearing a meatball. I met someone who seemed kind of cool. Really? A girl, someone? Or a boy, someone? Millie didn't like the grandpa's insinuating tone. Well, not that it matters, but it has to be a boy. Don't try to turn it into some kind of love story, though. We just had a decent conversation is all. A decent conversation is something, especially these days. Most people your age won't look up from their phones long enough to say, "How do you do?" Grandpa said. Not to put the cart before the horse, but I met your grandma when I was just a little older than you are now. So what? Now you've been engaged to this guy. So what? Now you've been to have me engaged to this guy I just met, Grandpa? I'm 14. Grandpa laughed. You're right. That you're much too young to be engaged, and your grandma and I didn't get engaged until when we were teenagers either. But we were high school sweethearts. And then we went to the same college. We got engaged our senior year of college and married in June, right after we graduated. He smiled. And it all started with a good conversation at lunch. Like you and today, so you never know. Slow down, old man, Millie said, fighting off a smile. Grandpa's eyes went soft and misty. Just reminiscing. I wish you could have known your grandma, Millie. She was really something special, and to lose her when she wasn't even 40... It's like Annabelle Lee, Millie said. The poem? Grandpa said. And it was many, many years ago in a kingdom of sea. Yes, I guess it was something like that. Well, that's the end of our little start of this beautiful book. Or the new chapter of this book. I need to keep this book out, as a matter of fact, because I have to read it in another 2 hours. That's the end of Count the Ways. So, usually, at the end, I also have a second theory. I usually have a second theory about it. So, here's my second theory of the video. Okay, so, we're on the final thing of this book. Now, let's read the names. Into the Pit. Okay, Into the Pit. To Be Beautiful. Count the Ways. Okay. So, Into the Pit was about a kid going into a restaurant at Freddy's, never meeting an actual animatronic. So that's the setting. To Be Beautiful shows a character meeting one of the other characters, which would set the, which would set the character of the story, and or the second location. I think this book is this is a book full of locations. Freddy's, her school, and this girl, Millie's grandpa's house. Have you ever noticed all three of them talk about going to school and some popular girls? I think they're all in the same school. just separate occasions, separate years type of thing. Because in Into the Pit, the first one, or what's the first one called? Let me look at it real quick. In Into the Pit, you can what's it called? Into the Pit talks about a little boy that ends up going to this place every day until he goes into a ball pit, goes into the past. Okay, but he also talks about somewhat going to school, but never actually talking about school that much, because there's always popular girls. To Be Beautiful talks about a girl wanting to be with the popular girls, ending up succeeding, but but it never talks about someone. They're always talking to each other about being on their phones. For example, how Susie, I think that was her name, talks about how she was always on her flip phone. Into the Pit never talks about being on any type of phone. So no type of phone, flip phone, big phone. So I think they're in the same school, but different eras of time. That's my genuine theory about this book. Next book I'm getting is probably Fazbear Fright 2. And if we see now, it's called Fetch. I'm actually getting every single one of these books soon. So, you know, yippee-ki-yay on that. But this is going to be the second book that we're getting. The second book. I'm also thinking soon I'll get the Silver Eyes, Twisted Ones, Fourth Closet. But first I'm going to get Fetch, 1:35 a.m., Step Closer, which is the book I'm really excited about, and Bunny Call. I'm going to read them in order, sadly, but it's fine. And, yeah, it's going to be pretty epic. So, that's the end of today. I hope you guys had a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient, don't die of the coronavirus. And, I don't have an outro yet, but I can make one up on the spot. Wanna see? But seriously, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient. Don't die to coronavirus. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-womp.